that is where F strings come along. Not to be confused with F bombs. F strings are an easier way to do the same thing that we're doing with string.format. And here's how it works. You still have the placeholders here. And then right before the opening quotes in the string you want to use, you just type the letter F. And what you'll notice when I type the letter F is that my string immediately highlights those curly braces. It's highlighting them so that I can see that those are placeholders. It's underlining them in red because there's an error. With an F string, you're not allowed to have empty placeholders because what it wants you to do is use either variables or you can use numbers. That's not really that useful. But if you say str mom age equals 80, my mom's getting older all the time here. Let's see. Str mom age. Okay. So there is an F string. That does the exact same thing as string.format. The advantage to this is two things, I think. Number one, this is a lot less typing than with format. Number two, you can put the exact variable straight into the string, which is a lot easier to keep track of, at least for me. I would never choose to use string.format over fstring. String.format is older. It's what was traditionally used for this. Fstring is just a new superpower that we have for strings that allows you to put the variables straight into those placeholders. I think it is far superior. It was intended to be superior when people built it. So when I run this, you can see it works just fine and is very useful. Another cool thing you can do is this. He has okay, so if I have a variable called int dollars, and I don't know why I was doing string there. Sorry about that. Those should be int dollars equals 100. I'm rich and int age. Okay. So I can do this. Obviously, it's going to put that in there. He has $100. But what if I have a number like that? I want to be able to round it off or at least show it up so it looks like $100.24, right? So here's another superpower that an F string has that you can do. And that is I can put in a formatting code. Notice it goes right after the variable. I put a colon, point to F, which is the formatting code that says limit that to only 2 decimal places. So now, well, let's do it without this real quick. I didn't run it without it. So there, if I run this without it, it doesn't make any sense, right? But if I run it with it, it will limit that to just 2 decimal places right there on the fly. I can keep this as a whole number because I don't want to eliminate that. Maybe I want to do calculations with it that are more precise later on. But for the purpose of displaying it, it has to look like dollars and cents, which allows me to do that. There are many other formatting codes. I could show you all of them, but you're not going to remember them. And kind of here's the deal. I'm going to say this a lot during this class. There's not a programmer on the entire planet who remembers every single aspect of every single language. When I'm writing code, I have a window open where I'm constantly looking things up. What are the correct parameters for this function? What are my limits here? How can I do this? All the time. Every programmer I know, no matter how high their level is, no matter how experienced they are, sometimes more so the more experience they get, They're looking things up. They're looking up the best way to do things. They're looking up the proper formatting for things. It is what it is. Our minds are only capable of remembering so much, but if you remember that things exist, right? Oh, this is a thing I can do. I don't remember exactly how to do it, but it's a thing I can do. Then you can look it up. So what I want you to remember is this is a thing you can do. Do you remember? Do you have to memorize that 0.2f is going to give you 2 decimal places? You won't. And I'm not going to put it on some kind of crazy quiz or exam, because who remembers all of the answers for all of the biology questions that they took on the very large multiple choice exam at the end of your biology class? Nobody. That's not how people learn, especially not now when we all have this thing in our pocket that allows us to access any of the information in the entire world at any moment, right? So let's be practical. Let's focus on the important stuff. And the important stuff is just remembering that's a thing you can do with an F string. Remembering that an F string is a little bit better than a format, than string.format, because you can put variables straight into those placeholders. You remember that much, you're in pretty good shape. Yeah.
Why does 1 and 2 have to be int? Is it just to clean it up?
And it was because it doesn't have to be. It's not going to give me an error, as I demonstrated, because I ran it several times with them labeled as strings. But that was a little sloppy of me to label them as strings because they weren't actually strings. And later on, yeah, if I was writing a more complex program later on down the road, if I forget that those aren't strings, I could try to do something that's like I would try to use a string method on an integer or something like that. Because this, I can't do something like int age dot lower. That's going to give me an error because it's not a string. And even if I call it str age, even if I call it str age, I still can't do str age dot lower because it's not a string. It's still an integer. So that's why labeling things properly is important. And I actually made myself go back and fix that because I want to be a good example. And int is what those actually are, and that helps me. So if I was to convert this to a string, which I can, I would create a new variable called string age that has a string in it. And then I know that that's a string that I can do string things with, because strings and integers have different methods. Yeah. So it's more of a discipline that saves me effort down the road than anything else. Any other questions so far? All right. I want to get into, let's see.